The final talk of the day and the best talk of the day, we have Jonny Black talking about from code to customer. So take it away, Jonny.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Jonny, and this is my first conference talk. I was inspired after attending NIDC last year to submit a talk. And this wasn't long after returning to my homeland here in Northern Ireland after working and living in Scotland for 30 years. I'm currently a senior product manager. Now, senior product manager, that's not the sort of job title my 10-year-old or 18-year-old self would have came up with. You know, my 10-year-old self was thinking professional goalkeeper. 18-year-old was thinking a bit more grounded, maybe an economist or something computer related. As it turns out, I did go down the computing route and graduated in 1998 from the University of Dundee with a computer science degree. I then got the coolest job playing with tech, traveling the world, creating and showing off concepts. So how did I end up in product management? And maybe more importantly, why would anybody choose to do that?
This is cool.
So during this talk, I'll give a quick overview of what product management actually is, just to make sure we're all on the same page, share a simple view of my career journey and the key transition points along the way, tell a few stories about how my engineering background has both helped and hindered me as I've moved into product management, and finally wrap up with some tips for anyone considering making the same leap. Before I dive in, let me be clear about what I'm aiming to achieve today. First, I want to put product management on the radar as a genuine, rewarding career path, especially if you're an engineer just now. Second, for those already in product roles, I'll share practical ways to turn your technical backgrounds into an advantage. And third, if you're leading teams, I want to give tangible insights of bridging the gap between engineering and product management. What I won't do is give you every detail of my life story. I realized whilst preparing this talk, I had more lessons than I had minutes to deliver them. So I've been selective, focusing on the key moments, typically the ones where my engineering background either saved me or tripped me up. If something sparks your interest or you want to go deeper on an example, we'll hopefully have time for questions at the end, but if not, grab me at the after party or connect with me on LinkedIn. So, what is product management? You might have heard the term, but you aren't quite sure what it means. The role varies significantly depending on context. I'll start by using a well-coined phrase in product management: it depends. It depends on the size and stage of the company, whether you're building for businesses or consumers, team structure, and more. But at its core, product management always involves understanding customer problems, what pain points you're solving, defining vision and strategy, where are you going and why, prioritizing what to build, what outcomes matter most, bridging teams, aligning engineering, design, and business, influencing without authority, getting things done through collaboration, communicating, keeping everyone aligned, often through that beautiful, sometimes controversial artifact, the roadmap. In short, product management sits in the intersection of customer needs, business goals, and engineering capability. Here's a simplistic view of the relevant transitions for me from product engineering or from engineering to product management, represented as 5 stages. Providing a high-level overview will give you an additional context when I come to discussing the learning moments. So stage 1, innovation. My very first job out of university was working as part of an innovation team at NCR. It was the dream job. I was surrounded by people of all sorts of disciplines, all collaborating to imagine the future. We got to experiment, prototype, and quite literally play with toys. We had robot dogs walking around the office, and our job was to dream up concepts, build them, and take them around the world, showing them off to clients, often C-suite executives at major banks, to spark conversations about the future. A concept you may be familiar with that came through the labs was the self-checkout terminal with the infamous unexpected item in bagging area. I realize now that my experience in innovation, the innovation team, was already laying the foundations for product management, understanding customer feedback, testing ideas early, and thinking strategically about what might actually make it to market. Good things must come to an end, and after about 15 years of different iterations of innovation team, it was disbanded. The company's position, innovation should be throughout the company, not just one team. So on to stage 2, engineering. Over the next 6 years, I worked in a more traditional engineering environment. We followed Agile. I worked with an amazing team building various platforms and later transitioned to a team where I utilized one of the platforms. As well as my day-to-day development activities, I was also given a number of opportunities to act as a product owner. Whilst working as part of the team consuming the platform, it became clear that the majority of the work was firefighting rather than innovating. So I'd been coasting, I'd been loving what I'd been doing, but now it was time to reflect. And therefore we moved to stage 3, the decision point. So after 20 years in my career, I was thinking for the first time, what do I actually want to do? So let's skip over my decision-making process right now. We'll come back to that right at the end when we review whether product management is the right move for you. But obviously I made that decision and was fortunate to secure a role as a global software product manager in the same company. Stage 4, commercial product management. My first formal role in product management I would describe as commercial product management. I owned a large portfolio of ATM marketing products, including profit and loss responsibility. Revenue was a key measure against my performance. I led a cross-functional solution realization team spanning engineering, marketing, sales, support, professional services. Key highlights from my time in this role, we launched our first SaaS product with a subscription model, a major shift from the traditional on-premise software we'd been shipping. We worked within a scaled agile framework with product owners in each team. I relied heavily on my manager's mentorship. I was still finding my feet. Looking back, I was a yes man. I hadn't yet developed the maturity about vision and strategy. Deliveries are often driven by others' needs rather than my own strategic priorities. After 2 successful years, an unsolicited LinkedIn message from a recruiter opened the door to my next chapter as a senior product manager. So on to the final stage of my journey so far, stage 5, senior product manager. The proposed role was compelling and radically different from my current role. It was working for a scale-up of around 200 people versus the 35,000 that were in NCR, although acquisition from Sage was on the horizon. It combined product manager and product owner responsibilities. It was for an e-commerce sector rather than the financial services sector that I'd been familiar with, and there'd be people management responsibility as well. The familiar thread, I'd be owning the platform, so that was right in my wheelhouse. This was a stage of tremendous growth. I became obsessed with mastering product management as a craft. I devoured books on Audible, attended product tank meetups post-COVID, and actively engaged in the products community. Now that we've got that high-level context, let's take a look at some examples or learning opportunities. I framed them as 8 learning moments plus a bonus. So, as engineers, we live in the details. Technical precision is our craft, but as product managers, the same instinct can become a trap. When we default to diving deep because it's comfortable, we risk missing the bigger picture and neglecting the business perspective. The question isn't whether to go deep, it's when. Let's look at an example where I got this wrong. So learning moment one, commit this code. As a product owner, before becoming a product manager, we were building a user interface framework where products could self-bootstrap into a defined area on the screen at runtime. In sprint planning, the team estimated the feature to be a full sprint with significant uncertainty. My inner voice was screaming, "This is overestimated." I spent 30 minutes later that day, found a solution and pasted around 10 lines of code into Jira and said, commit that. So the good, the problem was solved fast, the team was unblocked. The bad, that was potentially risked signaling lack of trust on the team's capability. My solution may not have been the best solution, and I've robbed them the ability to explore that. And it could detract from the team's sense of ownership. Learning moment two, implement it this way. In my senior product manager role, I took on responsibility for our customer-facing flagship capability, automation. So it saves customers on average 2-person months per year through automated workflows. One of our strategic goals was to make it more flexible. My engineering instinct kicked in again. I'd worked on similar capabilities in the past. I had a preconceived view of what the architecture would look like and a view of how to implement it. I took it to the team. Their reaction, pushback. Why this approach? Why not that? I jumped straight to the how without explaining why. I hadn't brought them on the journey. The lesson, my job, was to define the outcome and constraints, not prescribe the solution. So I reframed the problem, stepped back, and the team explored multiple options, including off-the-shelf frameworks I hadn't considered. They found a better solution and owned it. Key takeaway, focus on why, not how. Define the problem clearly, and then trust the team to solve it. So yes, technical knowledge can hinder, but it can also be your superpower. Some roles explicitly benefit from an engineering background. My official title when I joined the e-commerce scale-up as a product manager for the platform was Senior Technical Product Manager. As a technical PM, your stakeholders are typically internal, other products and services that depend on your platform. Your technical background lets you speak fluently about APIs, scalability, and performance. There's no translator needed. Better yet, you become the translator for the business, turning technical complexity into the language that resonates with stakeholders. A close relationship with engineers is essential. They surface problems, technical debt, and business as usual challenges like MySQL 8 deprecation on AWS or SMTP authentication changes. Your job, understand the full context, make the right calls, and transparently share your rationale. That's how you earn trust and demonstrate impact. And on to the next learning moment, the unintended feedback loop. So in engineering, done is typically meant, or has traditionally meant, ship to production. But in reality, that's not the end. Arguably, a better way to consider done is, has the outcome been achieved? Measurable success metrics should be defined up front. We should monitor post-release to see if we hit them, and if not, iterate. This outcome-focused mindset gives engineering autonomy to drive solutions, not to ship features. We should use data as our compass. Your engineering background is an asset here. You know how to instrument code, capture meaningful metrics, and model data. Combining product usage data with support tickets and customer conversations shapes informed decisions. With proper instrumentations, continuous integration and continuous deployment, and feature flags, you can experiment, deploy, and adapt quickly based on what the data tells you. In this learning moment, we received an unexpected feedback after releasing an improvement to speed up search under a feature flag to all customers. We decided to default results to the last 90 days rather than going back to the beginning of time. And this was based on actually asking the customers for their feedback to make this decision. Within an hour, Of it being released, around 5% of our users logged support tickets, but not to do with search, to do with a completely different page about truncated orders. What we learned: welcome all feedback, even bad news. It gives you useful insights. We discovered a hidden use case. We hadn't realized customers were using the product in the way that they described. And feature flags can save us. We were able to disable the feature for the customers who complained and correct that. But a future lesson is maybe you should consider a general rollout rather than to releasing to all customers at once. Learning moment 5, believing the hype. Again, referencing my time as a senior product manager with automation, the internal vibe was customers love it, sales raved about it, but working on this capability taught me 4 critical lessons. Number 1, question your own perception. Don't rely on secondhand feedback. Connect directly with the customers. I put out a survey to our customers which revealed automation had its share of pain points, some of which contradicted what we were telling ourselves. So with that survey data in hand, we weren't lacking in opportunities we could explore. Number 2, you can't do everything, so prioritize ruthlessly. So you can use frameworks like ICE, which is impact, confidence, and effort, and that lets you score opportunities objectively. Number 3, strategy is your filter. It helps you say no to distractions and yes to what matters. Number 4, transparency builds alignment. So when you clearly communicate what's prioritized and why, other teams can align their messaging and efforts. When I say prioritization, that doesn't mean blindly following a ranked list, but it does give clear rationale as to why item number 30 on the list isn't on the roadmap. The next one is connecting engineers with customers. So direct customer contact transforms how engineers engage with problems. Rather than always filtering feedback through product management, bring engineers into customer conversations. After a 30-minute call I had with a customer, I had enough information to write up the problems, but instead I invited the customer to meet with our engineering team directly. The impact: engineers heard the pain points unfiltered, their natural problem-solving instincts kicked in, and we explored solutions together. They developed genuine ownership. They'd met someone who'd benefit from their work. So not every problem got solved, but priorities became clearer, and some avenues were ruled out through the direct engagement. It was a win-win. Engineers gained empathy and context, and the customers felt heard and could see impact with the product. Number 7, so adapt process to people, not the other way around. At NCR, I worked in a world of rigorous sprint planning and story pointing. It provided certainty across a large organization. Skilled product owners I worked with, and I'll give a shout out to them, Matt Lee and AJ Milani, excelled at working closely with the teams to turn initiatives into reliable quarterly plans. At the scale up, different story. The team were skeptical about story pointing. They were concerned it would be used against them. Through retros and experimentation, the team naturally gravitated towards Kanban. It was the right approach because they chose it. The lesson: don't force familiar processes. Discover what empowers this team to perform at its best. Key takeaway: trust good engineers to self-regulate. Give them flexibility and they'll own their destiny. Right, now lesson number 8. Like I mentioned, in the innovation years, there were aspects that prepared me for my role in product management. But I'll admit at times I was guilty of gravitating towards the shiniest new technology and then considering how can we use this to address customers' problems, or what problems could this technology help with in general, rather than putting the customer and the problems at the start of the process. So let's summarize some of the key lessons. Engineering habits are powerful but need balance. Don't let your comfort with technical detail pull you away from the bigger picture. Focus on the why, not the how. Empower your teams to find their own solutions. They'll deliver better and own it more deeply. technical knowledge can be a superpower. Use it to translate engineering and use it to translate between engineering and business, to bridge understanding, not to dominate detail. Delivery isn't the end, measure outcomes. Use data, instrumentation, and customer feedback to learn and adapt quickly. Bring engineers closer to the customer. Let them hear pain points firsthand. It builds empathy and ownership. Empower good teams to self-regulate. Support retros, experimentation, and adaptation. Process should serve people, not the other way around. Be transparent. Use data and frameworks like ICE to make decisions visible and objective. Start with the problem, not with the technology. Innovation is best when it solves something real. This is just a sampling of the lessons I've learned over the course of my journey. I'll be reflecting on what to do with the other examples I've uncovered preparing for this talk, maybe another talk. Now for the bonus. Most of the lessons I've shared focus on the technical side, engineering habits, delivery practices, working with developers. But there's another critical shift that happens when you move into product management. And it's less about process and more about people. That shift is communication. In product management, you rarely have direct reports. You don't have formal authority over the people you most closely work with, engineers, designers, stakeholders. Your job is to influence without hierarchy, to lead through vision, not control. And that means building trust, not all at once, but through a series of small, consistent actions. Depending on your personality, that might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're more introverted or used to working with your head down in code. But it's absolutely learnable, and the more you practice it, the more natural it will become. When I first joined the scale-up, I made a deliberate effort to connect with people across the company. I set up 15-minute remote coffee chats, initially based on suggestions from my manager. But I kept it going with Slack's donut feature, which randomly pairs you with someone to have a casual conversation with in the company. I also identified key people that it made sense to have regular check-ins with. These weren't always work-focused. Working remotely, you lose those water cooler moments. So this became a way to balance relationship building with information sharing. Sometimes those chats sparked ideas. Sometimes they surfaced context that shaped a decision I wasn't expecting to make. And occasionally, they led to collaborative work on initiatives. The key insight, having conversations with people outside of situations where one of you needs something from the other reduces friction when those asks inevitably come. Trust isn't built in the crisis, it's built in the quiet moments before. So earlier I mentioned I'd returned to the decision point where I chose product management path. Let me share that story now, because this process I went through might help you think about whether product management is right for you. I saw a job posted internally, product manager for digital banking with a strong focus on data. The data angle immediately caught my attention, data being a passion of mine, both in my engineering work and academic. It was a higher grade, so that was also a motivator. I reached out to the hiring manager to learn more. He was on vacation, so he directed me to speak to another director of product for ATM software, Alex. I'd never spoken to Alex before, so I set up the call, had a conversation, and that conversation turned out to be pivotal. I was honest with him. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. Engineering manager, product manager, I didn't know. Alex walked me through what product management really involved, and something clicked. The role aligned with my passion for innovation, especially the focus on defining the problems to solve, not just solving them. I didn't get the job. It went to somebody already in product management. Shortly after, I was approached about an engineering role. I turned it down. Something had shifted. I knew the right path for me was product management. Then within a week, Alex reached out. He had a role in his team. I went for it and got it. The original conversation had opened a door. Before accepting, I spoke to the product manager who'd been covering part of the role, because I wanted to understand the day-to-day, not just what was written in the job description. For me, it was the right decision, no regrets. Since then, my product management knowledge has grown through experience and through reading. But here's an important lesson I've learned. Reading about it isn't the same as doing it. Books are valuable. They give you stories of success and failure. They offer frameworks and ideas you can reference, but your situation is unique. You shouldn't be a purist. You need to be pragmatic and do what feels right for the situation you're in. Having said books can be valuable, here's my reading list, which I've been keeping since the end of 2022. Here's my LinkedIn profile, should you want to reach out and connect and talk about anything we've covered or haven't covered today. In my spare time, I've become a creator of memes related to product management. You'll find me at Product Jonny on Instagram. And it'd be great to hear if and how today's talk influences your career decisions. And I think we do have time for questions. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much. That was very good. As a technical product manager, do you think the role of an engineering manager is redundant?
So I think an engineer, so when I had that chat with Alex, we actually talked about what's the role of an engineering manager versus a product manager. And the thing is, engineering manager, I think in its purest form, isn't necessarily about doing the engineering side. A lot of it is to do with the pastoral care and taking care of the team and making sure you have the right team and the right culture. So that is... An engineering manager is a people manager of engineers. A technical product manager, it's managing the product. So it's what is the vision of the product. So you're not considering, you're looking at the direction of that product. Okay, MySQL 8 is going to be deprecated. We need to make sure we have something in place to replace that. So I think they're two different roles. Engineering manager, and that's sort of what's influenced my decision as well to going down the product manager route.
Any other questions?
Hello. With such a communication-heavy role, you must have to have a lot of difficult conversations, like, for example, telling a customer, no, you can't have that, or telling the devs that, yes, it's ridiculous what the customer wants, but you must do it. Do you have any tips for how to handle those situations?
Okay. Yeah, okay. Trying to think of how to frame this as well, because it's not just customers, it's not just, there's the sales teams as well. Sales teams maybe promise something. So I like to frame things. You may be in an awkward situation, maybe a smaller company where things have been promised and then you have to deliver on it. But I prefer to be in a position where you're not promising anything. You are able to reflect on what you've delivered to show there is progress, rather than saying, oh, this new feature will be coming along. You're talking about saying no. I think transparency is the key thing there, of saying, if we're doing this, we're not doing that. And here's the evidence why these are in the top 5 versus this one's down in the 30. So if a single customer comes in and asks for it, I'd be reluctant to run after that, because that may skew the product as well. I think I could go off in so many tangents here and probably moving away from your original question here.
No, I think what I've heard is that you'd avoid the specific crunch points I described by having better communication before you get there.
Yeah, I think transparency up front is the important thing. And making, like I say, getting all those stakeholders, if you can lead with that vision, everybody else can follow, knowing that that's the rationale that has been put in place. So hopefully you don't end up with those awkward situations.
Any other questions?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Jonny.
Hi.
So I've got 2 questions to you, if it's okay. First one is kind of easier. What kind of inspired you to actually move from software engineering role to be a program manager? Was it because, as you said, you have kind of like more access to innovation, or something else? Why not just stay a software engineer? Seems easier and fun?
Oh, it seems easier. Yeah,
Depends.
well, there's multiple. So, yeah, waking up in the morning, what's actually getting you out of bed? I think, yeah, that innovation spark that I had for the 15 years, I was missing that then when the tail end of my engineering time, I was had moved to another team. There may have been something around that team dynamics that also, not the team itself, maybe management in there as well. There were things that were meant that I was keen or open to moving elsewhere. So yeah, it's just like I said. I reflected back, and I'd been loving things up to that point. I just wasn't at that point, and that's where I could step back and go, well, I'm going to go down the individual contributor route, carry on being like tech lead, architect, those things. Do you want to go down the engineering manager route? Do you want to go down product manager route? I think I researched that by speaking to people about it. So speaking with Alex's and speaking with the people in the roles to find out, is that what I want to do? So it was a pivotal point, and I spoke to people, and that sounded like the right match for me at that point in my life.
Cool, got you. And my second question is, let's say there is a difficult engineer in your team, difficult in a way that maybe the developer is delivering late, or maybe making some mistakes, maybe missing some meetings, etc. As a project manager, like how do you resolve, or like how do you talk to this developer?
Well, so I've as an engineer, I've worked in a team. I said a very good team, but there was an occasion where we had one who wasn't so good, or did his own thing, and I think first and foremost, that's where the engineering manager really needs to step in and make sure that that culture is right. Me as a product manager, it's great for me to connect with the engineers, but I need to step back and see the bigger picture as well. So I think the important thing there is know my position, and it's probably not my position to go in and speak there. I think it would be the engineering manager's responsibility to figure out what's right for their team with regards to that tricky person.
Sure, yeah. Thanks.
Would you ever consider discussing something like that in a retro? Because I've actually done retros before where engineers have even themselves said in the retro, like, I was a shitty person this week because, I was in a bad mood, or if you get the team to a point where they're like, enough psychological safety to cater to each other. Sometimes they can actually manage each other, manage themselves, and be self-aware as well. I don't know, it depends on the team dynamic, or if people just want to call each other out, or...
I mean, it sounds good in practice, but I never met a team where everybody would feel 100% comfortable and honest saying whatever they want to say.
Yeah.
People always have some kind of blockades, and what is your point with retros? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're right, it totally depends on the culture. And a lot of that also depends on when you keep talking, on the product manager or whoever is running the retro, or within the team to model the behavior. So if you can call out yourself when you feel a bit of whatever that week, then you can kind of free up the space for people to also themselves acknowledge when behavior's not back there. I want to stop talking.
That's okay. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, and thank you for Jonny.
Okay.
Closing clock is downstairs in a few minutes, I believe, and then there's an after party.